News to talk to O'Reilly about here on the economic front, Leland. I just was reading a report that the EU their finance ministers are getting together to consider getting fuel from Russia because of what Trump is doing right now. You know, they had stopped because of the Ukraine war. That just shows you the butterfly effect we got to deal with.
And it shows you what the EU's real values are as well. Never known for moral clarity there. Chris, thank you very much. As Chris said, this Monday night, we start with breaking news, not only with the Europeans, but also with the Chinese. President Trump's trade war with China is now entering a new phase because the Chinese are hitting back and hitting back hard. They aren't just raising tariffs. They already did that. But they are suspending rare earth exports to the United States. Why is that important? Because rare earth materials are critical for making everything from cars to jet fighters to computer chips to medical equipment. And the Chinese are keeping that from the United States. They're here to play. Meanwhile, the Trump administration softened its tariffs by allowing exemptions on a number of electronic products. Trump defended the decision again today using a line he repeatedly and frequently used since the trade war began.
I'm not like a block that just, I won't delay. It's called flexibility. It's not called inconsistency. It's called flexibility. The word flexibility is an important word. Sometimes there's flexibility. I think the word would be flexible. You have to be flexible. Look, I'm a very flexible person. I don't change my mind, but I'm flexible.
The president's back and forth on tariffs has been hard to follow. The plan changes quickly and often. The Chinese, on the other hand, have a 100-year plan. They are ready for war. They know what they want. They want to replace the United States as the world's superpower. And the Chinese are willing to endure pain to get to that goal. Trump's problems with tariffs is that he can't define his ultimate goal. That's our Why It Matters segment tonight. Let's compare Trump's overwhelming success with the border, which he has had, to the tariff quagmire. In the past, well, many presidents have made very clear goals. FDR, for example, wanted unconditional surrender during World War II. Reagan's strategy on the Cold War was simple. He said, we win, the Soviets lose. That's it. George W. Bush, America must defeat the Taliban. Barack Obama wanted free health care for all. He tried to deliver on that promise with the Affordable Care Act. Many of Trump's stated goals when it comes to the tariffs are contradictory to each other. He simply needs to be able to clearly define his goal with tariffs in one sentence, and it cannot be make America great again. That's a slogan. It's not a goal. Then he needs to explain to the American people why it's a goal worth sacrificing for. And confronting China is a goal worth sacrificing for. And then convince Americans to stay the course and endure the pain, short-term pain for long-term gain. So the tariff debacle, and that's what it's becoming, is in stark contrast to his success on immigration. So let's apply the above logic to the border. Trump set a goal to secure the border and deport all illegal immigrants. Easy to understand. The problems caused by illegal immigration were very easy to see. People felt it. They understood why it was worth fixing. And now Trump is keeping his promise. People coming across the border is down 99%. And moreover, there's been some negative media headlines. The media's tried to ding him on different things. There's been pressure. And Trump has not wavered an iota. That's especially true with the case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. He was mistakenly deported to El Salvador. Trump says Garcia will not be coming back to the United States, even though the Supreme Court said he should come back. The administration isn't backing off. Stephen Miller, for example, is going to war with reporters over it.
Guys, do you know the difference between a deportation order and a withholding order? Do you know the difference? Any of you, please. Do you?
Well, we're not in the government.
But you couldn't even spend 72 hours over the weekend learning the distinction, even though you've been writing and talking about it this whole time.
All right, so let's review with the border. Trump defined a goal and is not turning back on executing the policy. But with tariffs, his goals are ill-defined and constantly changing. Take, for example, Secretary Howard Lutnick, Secretary of Commerce, trying to explain the decision to exempt some electronics.
the big tariffs on things like smartphones and laptops, iPhones, all those iPhones built in China, that those tariffs are temporarily off, but they're going to be coming right back on in another form in a month or so? Or what are you saying?
Correct. That's right. That's right. Semiconductors and pharmaceuticals will have a tariff model in order to encourage them to reshore, to be built in America.
If that doesn't make sense to you, it's because it's really confusing. And so far, the policy and messaging on tariffs has been an utter disaster, both economically and politically for the president. But as we have seen with the border, it does not have to be this way. We begin tonight with Bill O'Reilly, host of the No Spin News, author of the coming book, Confronting Evil, Assessing the Worst of the Worst. Good to see you, sir. Donald Trump understands how to do these things. We watched him do it with the border extraordinarily effectively. Why is he not able to apply that same logic, that same discipline, that same policy making to arguably something equally or more important, which is the U.S. economy?
Because there are too many players in the tariff, whereas there are only two players in the border immigration. So it's much easier to control two players than 100 players. And you're going to drive yourself crazy every day pointing out inconsistencies in the tariffs. I don't do it. It's a waste of my time. I know what the goal is. It's to get more money coming into the United States from abroad than we have now by a considerable sum. Now, I talked with the president yesterday.
You said more money. Go ahead with what the president said, and we'll get back to this.
Well, I mean, if you have a question about more money coming in, and it's coming in now, I'll answer the question, then I'll get to that. What is your question?
The money from tariffs doesn't come from overseas. The money for tariffs comes from all of us. And I think that's part of this inconsistency. You say it doesn't matter.
That's not right, Leland. I hate to put you in a Stephen Miller category, but the tariffs are paid for by the companies importing the goods into the United States. So Mercedes pays the tariff when the cars get dropped off at Newark. Okay, that's how it works.
And they don't pass, and they never pass any of those on to the consumer?
No, it doesn't have anything to do. It's two different things. All right? So the United States Treasury gets the money that Mercedes pays on the tariffs from its cars coming into the USA. And that's what Trump wants. He wants more money coming in than going out. Now, he's not going to achieve that goal. It's impossible to achieve it. But he'll cut it 50, 60%, I'm pretty sure, over the next 6 months or so. Any other questions on how tariffs are paid?
We'll agree to disagree on that, but then, go ahead with what the president said.
Well, you can disagree with it, but that's the fact.
Okay.
And I put in Jack, but I don't want to be a wise guy. All right? The companies that import the products pay the tariffs, which is what the lure is. You're not going to have to pay the tariff if you come back to the United States.
Right. No, that's agreed. But okay, what did the president have to say?
Thank you. Okay, so I had a brief conversation with him, and it wasn't a grilling, and it was an overarch, all right, about how he was feeling, how he's handling the situation now. He said to me, in the next few weeks, there are going to be stunning positive achievements that happen for the United States. Okay, every politician says that, right? Mm-hmm. Anybody promoting a policy is going to say, yeah, we're going to go get them. That's coming. It's going to be great. You wait and see. 35 years I've known a man. He has never once misled me. Never once. He's iced me when I say stuff he doesn't like, but he's never misled me. He would not have said that if those deals weren't already done. And I believe that Italy is done. Maloney will be here in 2 days. I believe Japan is done. And I believe that Trump knows that he is going to bring to the American people a series of deals over a short period of time that is going to make him look like an economic genius. That's what Trump believes. Now, I can't with any certainty predict what will happen. But when I talk to the President of the United States and I know him for 35 years, and I know what he does and why he does it. And he says that to me, not pressed. Okay. That just came out. I take it seriously.
Okay. Well, in that sense, you answered my next question, which is, if all of these countries are so busy to make deals, why hasn't he announced any deals? You're making the point he wants to wait until people show up. One big part of this is that he wants to bring manufacturing back to America. You and I have talked. He wants a 1950s version of America where we make cars and steel and rather than software and computers. But Frank Luntz has some interesting polling on this. America would be better off if more people worked in manufacturing. 80% of Americans agree, 20% disagree. That's about the percentage of Americans who agree that puppies are cute and ice cream tastes good. I would be better off if I worked in a factory. Only 23% of Americans agree, 73% disagree. Is Trump's vision for what he wants to do with tariffs possible?
You know, I think it's possible. People, presented with a manufacturing job in a plant aren't going to go, yay. Okay. But when you get married and you have children and you buy a home and you have to pay bills and the manufacturing job pays 3 times as much as the job at Walmart, then you're going to go for the manufacturing job. All right. It's called real life.
Yep.
So all of this pie in the sky stuff, I don't want to work in a factory. I've never desired. I don't know one human being on earth who goes, you know what I want to do in my life? Work in that factory. Okay? It's not what it is. It's about options. It's about raising standard of living. Bernie Sanders should be on board with this because all he screams about is income inequality. Well, this would narrow the inequality if you're getting paid $35 an hour from a union manufacturing job. But anyway, what I'm trying to say to you and to the American people watching NewsNation tonight is, don't get bogged down in the minutia of the swamp. All right? Trump is right. He's nimble. He'll change. When he was presented with the bond market going right over the cliff, bang. He paused everything. He's not stupid. His main motivation is becoming a great president. He knows if he fails in this tariff thing, he will not be that.
Would it be fair to say that if he fails, and I think this is a good point, you've made this warning before, if he fails, would a book in the Killing series be killing the economy?
Look, I want the economy to prosper. If it doesn't prosper under President Trump, he'll lose the midterms, and he will have very little power the last 2 years. That's the reality. Okay? But I'm not rooting for a recession like so many other
of course not.
Pundits on television are. They're absolutely rooting for it. They want Trump to go down in flames. I'm not. My job is to report the reality of the situation. And right now, they're in the 4th inning of the tariff controversy. That's where they are.
You think we're that far along?
I think we don't know.
Barely in the 1st inning.
I think we're in the 4th. I think we're in the 4th inning because our trade representatives have talked to 100 countries about this. And all this nonsense about, President Xi is visiting Vietnam, Malaysia, and Cambodia. Here's a bulletin for President Xi. They don't have any money to buy your stuff. So you can run around all day long and say, we're going to shift here, and you can threaten to withhold minerals and lithium and things that we need here in the United States, but we've got stuff that they need. And they start to shut down plants in Shanghai and out in the rural areas of China with $1.5 billion. Nobody in China has a Roth IRA. They don't have savings accounts earning 5% interest. They got nothing because that's what communism is.
Yeah.
We'll give you just enough to survive. So those things go down, they're going to have trouble eating over there. All right? So Xi can strut around all he wants, but believe me, the big hurt will be initiated by the United States if it comes to that, and I hope it doesn't.
I'm going to give you the last 30 seconds because you're setting up our next segment perfectly. That said, the American people do not do well with pain. Okay, we hoarded toilet paper during COVID. The Chinese people do well with pain because they don't have a choice. I would propose to you...
They got to eat.
Yeah, I would propose to you that Donald Trump, who blinked when the bond markets had issues, when we were told, nope, never blinks, he has the spine of steel, on and on. Xi is watching. Xi knows he can inflict short-term pain on America, and Americans and Donald Trump will not be as enduring and long-suffering as the Chinese might be.
To gamble, and the poll numbers will go down for Trump, but if he gets what he's trying to get, then his poll numbers will rocket.
Yep.
So he's gambling. He's gambling. There's no doubt. Look, there's a reason why no other president since Harry Truman has done this.
Yep.
Not one.
Will, you and I talked about it the whole time. He's trying to reset the world economy.
Way too much.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, you and I talked. We said, last week we sort of said this was Reagan-esque and this is a huge gamble. So there you go. Bill, thank you.
All right, one more plug. I want people to go to BillO'Reilly.com. I got a really good column called Et tu, Barack. And
there was a Julius Caesar reference, yes.
The dynamic within the Democratic Party right now, which is fascinating, and a story that's not being told because Trump, of course, is dominating all the headlines.
We have a segment on that later,
the best
too.
Coverage, good. The best coverage ever on these tariffs is on BillO'Reilly.com because I got the pipeline, and I'm reporting honestly. Right. I don't do this spin deal. Thanks for having me, Leland. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Bill. We'll talk soon. China, as we've said, as Bill noted, does not seem too concerned about Trump's tariffs. Does Xi actually have the better hand in this trade war? Bill says no. What about the coming real war?
Thanks for listening to NewsNation on the Go. I'm Elizabeth Vargas. We're here for you 24/7 on the NewsNation app or on your Alexa. Just say, play NewsNation.
Xi Jinping met with the Prime Minister of Vietnam in Hanoi earlier today. Why do you care? Because Xi Jinping's trying to get the Vietnamese on their side. This is what President Trump, who found it important enough to respond to, had to say of the meeting in the Oval Office.
We lost with China over the Biden years trillions of dollars on trade. Trillions of dollars. And he let them fleece us. And we can't do that anymore. And you know what? I don't blame China at all. I don't blame President Xi. I like him. He likes me. I mean, who knows? Who the hell cares? I don't blame China. I don't blame Vietnam. I see their meeting today. Is that wonderful? That's a lovely meeting. The meeting, like trying to figure out how do we screw the United States of America?
Fact check. True. China announced it would stop sending the United States rare earth minerals today. So remember the supply chain problems of the pandemic we all dealt with. China is now creating a supply chain problem with critical components for high-tech weapon systems, fighter planes, and medical equipments. It matters. With us now, Evelyn Farkas, Executive Director of the McCain Institute and former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for President Obama, Gordon Chang, U.S.-China Relations Analyst, Gatestone Institute Senior Fellow, I think one of the smartest people on China around. Gordon, China's been preparing for this day, I think, for 30 years? What does Xi Jinping want?
Well, Xi Jinping wants to rule the world, but his intermediate goals are to destroy the United States, and he wants to do that with trade. And as you point out, he's got this rare earth embargo. The problem for the Chinese is that they tried this tactic in 2010 with Japan, and their embargo collapsed within 2 months. And the reason is that these don't work, because although we've got to buy, the Chinese have got to sell. So they will sell onto the open market. They'll maybe even sell to us directly under the table, but we will get what we need. And really, this is not a card for China. The problem for Xi Jinping is that the cards he has to play hurt him or as much or more than it hurts us. And then we've got a lot of things which we can hurt him, and he has no answers to those things.
You seem to say that we have the upper hand.
Yeah, of course. First of all, we're the larger economy. Their economy is less than 2/3 the size of ours. They're the trade surplus country. Last year, their merchandise trade surplus was $295.4 billion. They've got everything to lose in all of this. So, yeah, we've got the high cards, and the Chinese know it. And the only card that China has, it's trying now to use Wall Street, farmers, C-suites, you name it, to try to get Trump to preemptively surrender. You know, Trump is not the type of guy who's going to give up the high cards when he knows that he has the leverage. So this is important to him, as Bill O'Reilly just told you. I think he's going to stay the course.
Evelyn, think what you want about Trump's tactics. We talked about those in the past segment. Bowing down to China has been a bipartisan issue over the past 30 or 40 years, not confronting China. There was always this idea that we could bring them into the fold. You got to give Trump credit right now for trying here, right?
Well, I think, Leland, he tried in the first term. Remember, he had also applied sanctions against China. But that time it was in a much more precise fashion, and he explained that he was doing it based on national security considerations. And it was so convincing that, of course, the Biden administration continued those tariffs. And to this day, all of those tariffs are still in place. The problem with the current tariff policy, if you will, is that it's not, as you said, not clearly articulated in the earlier segment. And they are across the board. And I would say, you know, to add on to what Gordon said, I think both sides have a lot to lose. And, you know, I'm a political scientist, not an economist, so I won't talk in dollars and cents, but I will say that we are so, you know, interwoven with the Chinese in terms of our economy, in terms of the bond market, where the Chinese have a great deal of leverage that they haven't used yet, right? So it's hard for me to say that anyone's going to be a winner. And frankly, what I worry about is protectionism. You know, if you have an arms race, if you will, on protectionism, who can have the highest tariffs, you lead to a situation where the global economic order unravels, and you could very much see real armed conflict resulting. And why do I say that? Because we have history as an example that's happened before in the past.
Gordon, Xi Jinping said basically as much, right? That there's no winners in this trade or tariff war. That said, I think he is trying to, you say, fight this kind of hybrid warfare against America. One of the places on social media where suddenly my social media feeds are now filled with videos of people talking, clearly people meant to be Chinese, about how much cheaper it is to make stuff in China. Take a look.
You're saying you're the supplier behind all these beauty accessories for those big luxury brands? Dior's cosmetic products are actually produced by Taiho Group, which is also the supplier behind Lancome and Loewe.
For the past more than 30 years, we have been the OEM factory for most of the luxury brands around the world. Gucci, Prada, Coach.
What's the game plan here? Because I don't think this is a coincidence.
No, it's not a coincidence. And when you have Chinese propaganda, you can usually understand that they're sensitive about something and that usually the truth is the opposite of what they say. So, yeah, China has been making a lot of Gucci handbags, but the point is you can do that a lot cheaper in Vietnam. The Vietnamese know that. They'd rather deal with America than with China. And by the way, Vietnam doesn't have territorial disputes with us, but they have a lot of territorial disputes with China. They've gone to, matter of fact, the last time China went to real war was in 1979 against Vietnam. So clearly, you know, Xi Jinping can go to Southeast Asia, but those countries don't want to deal with him.
Man, fair enough. Evelyn, last 30 seconds to you. You think about the size of the Chinese military. As of 2024, their Navy, China 235 warships, U.S. 219. Their army is smaller, but it is still than it was, say, in the 1970s, but still 2 million active military personnel, much larger than the United States. Are they gearing up for a war?
Well, they certainly want to deter us from fighting them if they seize Taiwan, for example, if they want to cut off access through the South China Sea. So they're gearing up for war, yes. I will say that we still have an advantage in terms of quality of our military. I am worried that there are reports of increasing numbers of Chinese personnel fighting in Ukraine. That means they're actually getting battlefield experience, which the Chinese do not have, because, Gordon's
they
example
haven't fought a war, for a long time.
One. And the skirmishes with India on the border don't count either.
Well, it's fascinating. What you just said about them having soldiers in Ukraine and why is terrifying to anybody who knows anything about military training. Evelyn, Gordon, thank you both. Incredible insight. We appreciate it.
Thanks,
Thank you. Something finally brought American politicians together. As usual, it took someone almost getting killed for it to happen, namely one of their own to come within a whisker of assassination. Cody Balmer allegedly broke into the Pennsylvania governor's mansion with a hammer. He firebombed the downstairs, and then when looking for the governor to try and kill him and his family, the governor was upstairs, they were able to escape. Pennsylvania state troopers led Balmer into court today. He made some unusual faces for the camera.
You got anything more to say on the way out here?
Cody, why did you do it?
That looks like you do it. Come on.
Much has been made about the Pennsylvania governor having just held a Passover Seder in the mansion the night before the attack. And that's true. But there's something deeper going on here that President Trump spoke to.
The attacker was not a fan of Trump, I understand, just from what I read and from what I've been told. The attacker basically wasn't a fan of anybody. It's probably just a whack job. And certainly a thing like that cannot be allowed to happen.
Trump, of course, knows a lot about this. He survived 2 assassination attempts this summer. The first one failed by just a few millimeters.
If you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
Truth is, most of these people you see on the screen, all 3 of them, are, to borrow a phrase, whack jobs to begin with, and then find a home of similar-minded people on the internet.
This type of violence is not okay. This kind of violence is becoming far too common in our society. And I don't give a damn if it's coming from one particular side or the other, directed at one particular party or another, or one particular person or another. It is not okay. And it has to stop. We have to be better than this.
Yes, we do have to be better than this. But what is it? And who is going to start? We can all agree that someone is going to get killed soon. Truth is, someone already did. Corey Comparatori, the rally-goer and volunteer firefighter standing behind Trump. The bullets grazed Trump, but killed him. Joe, Jill Biden, J.D. Vance all condemn the attack on Shapiro on Twitter. Any adult knows words matter, but actions speak a lot louder than words. Sure, we can say it needs to stop. It, of course, is demonizing the other side. Thus, the crazies think they will become martyrs for stopping, for killing a politician. If we continue down this path, sooner or later, that will happen. Democrats are struggling to find a cohesive strategy. Will taking a page out of Bernie Sanders' playbook do the trick?
We need you to help us to create an economy that works well for everybody, not just the 1%.
You're listening to On Balance with Leland Vittert on NewsNation's audio stream. Available 24/7 on the NewsNation app, or just say, Alexa, play NewsNation.
Tomorrow is President Biden's first public speech since leaving the White House. Maybe best said, Democrats don't necessarily wish Biden ill. They do perhaps wish him gone. But for Democrats, Biden is the least of their problems. Over the weekend, Senator Bernie Sanders made an appearance at Coachella. For those of you who don't know, it's a popular music festival in California. Tickets cost between $600 and $1,400. The average beer there, $14. You can see it's a big party. A meal there, $100. Hundreds of dollars to camp, thousands of dollars for hotel rooms. But there was Bernie Sanders speaking to a crowd of tens of thousands of people who had all paid at least $600 to be there about taking down the oligarchy.
Now we got a president of the United States who... I agree. We need you to help us to create an economy that works well for everybody, not just the 1%.
Leland Vittert, former Bernie Sanders campaign advisor, chief political correspondent at Revolt News, is with us. Do you think he didn't understand the irony of talking about the 1% at Coachella?
I mean, let's be honest. Just because somebody saved up to pay a $700 ticket doesn't mean they're the 1%. I mean, the 1% is the 1%. It's not how I would prefer to spend my money. But
you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, but he was speaking to his base. You know, that's what Bernie Sanders does. He has a very good connection, even though he's almost 90. He has a very good connection with young folks. They love to hear from him. And so he did his thing. He's doing something more than what other Democrats are doing, which is absolutely nothing, and rolling over and playing dead.
Is it interesting that you say he's doing something, and we really praised him on the show and said that Republicans should pay attention when he and AOC went on that tour of working class towns. I thought about when he was in Fort Collins, Greeley, Colorado. These are hard scrabble, not really frontier towns, but still sort of on at the far end of what you think of as America having a tough time, and he got huge crowds. Then he goes to Coachella. You say he's doing something in terms of fighting back. No. NBC puts out these sort of 5 paths of how Democrats should fight back. The leading of the resistance against Trump at all costs is J.B. Pritzker of Illinois. Take a listen.
We've got to win. I mean, it is clear that we know how to organize. We also are clear, I think, that the voters are very upset about what's going on in Washington, D.C., and they want change, and they want a party that's actually for working families, not a party that pretended to be, and now is raising prices across the board on virtually everything.
Is going after Trump at every turn the right way, as you point out, to do something?
Well, I don't think he's doing, I don't agree with the something that he's doing. I'm saying he's just basically just doing something. It's not effective. It's not working. I'm not listening. I don't hear Democrats talking about the midterms. To me, to even be talking about what's happened 4 years from now and who's going to run for office for 4 years when there's no strategy for midterms right now, that seems to be a problem on the Democrat side. But James Carville put out a piece today that said that, Democrats should continue to roll over and play dead. I mean, he's literally saying that Democrats should do nothing at all and let it play out, let things play out. So that's what it looks like they're doing. So Bernie Sanders is going on his tour, but I don't know if it's going to drive solutions with actually getting people to get involved, run for office, and so forth. So we'll just see.
You think about this list of potential presidential candidates, because that's really where this is. You get somebody who becomes a leader, and then you get somebody who then pushes the party forward. Whitmer, Polis, Murphy of Connecticut, Gavin Newsom, J.B. Pritzker, Josh Shapiro, governor of Pennsylvania, Wes Moore of Maryland, Andy Beshear of Kentucky, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York. If you've got to ask yourself who is the inspirational leader among these people, doesn't that kind of answer the question?
I'm going to be honest with you. People are not inspired right now if folks are sitting up talking about what they're going to do in 2 or 3 years, when, again, right now they're not providing solutions. I'm just a regular layperson. I just did a town hall in Atlanta. We had over 200 people standing outside in the rain to be able to find solutions to know what they can do in their community right now. So I challenge...
When you say find solutions to do what they're in their community, what do you mean by that? What are you talking to them?
Well, I run a training myself. I train folks on how to run for office, which is nonpartisan, how to run for office, how to work on campaigns, how to be an organizer, how to be an activist. I mean, I literally train hundreds of people a year with no budget, no Democrat Party backing me, no Republican Party backing me. This is just something that I just do because it needs to be done. There were people who were standing outside in the rain begging for solutions. So they hear a lot of rhetoric on podcasts. They hear a lot of rhetoric on TV from Democrats, Republicans. This is wrong, that's wrong, but they're not actually providing the solution. It's great to have people stand in the stands for Bernie Sanders, but he failed with that in 2016 when I worked his campaign. He had plenty of people that came to the stands, but never really had a strategy on how to get them to the polls. So there's a lot of talk and not enough walk.
Well, look, we used to think about the idea of somebody who was a Bernie voter in 2016 who was going to cross over and become a Trump voter. And there turns out to be an enormous amount of those people. Leland, thank you so much. Fascinating conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is great. First wrote about this in War Notes. That's your chance for an inside look at the show every day. It is free. Warnotes.com and subscribe. You will be delighted, smarter, and the envy of all of your friends until you tell them to subscribe. Warnotes.com, at Leland Vittert on social media. The teen accused of fatally stabbing another student at a track meet is out on bond. Very low bond. Is this really a case of self-defense or first-degree murder? NewsNation and Decision Desk HQ out in front.
The first to call the races that matter to you.
Elections tonight in Wisconsin and Florida. Mark the tape right now, 9:47 Eastern. I'm watching all of the other networks. None of them have projected a winner in this race.
Delivering accurate election results without fear or favor.
You guys called the presidential race way ahead of everybody else, and once again, you have delivered.
Another reason why more Americans are turning to NewsNation.
Texas teen Carmelo Anthony walked out of jail today on a $250,000 bond. He's charged with first-degree murder. He allegedly stabbed 17-year-old Austin Metcalf in the heart and killed him. Metcalf and Anthony were at a high school track meet. The defense says Metcalf grabbed their client, starting the altercation, and thus this is a simple case of self-defense, something the victim's father disputes.
I want to make this very clear. This is not a race issue. This is not a black and white issue. I don't want someone stepping up on a soapbox trying to politicize this. The truth will come out. There were too many people that were there that saw what happened. My own son told me what happened. There was never a punch even thrown.
All right, so there's been a lot raised for Anthony's legal defense, $400,000. His family says they will also use that money for security and moving after facing a series of threats since the killing. With us now, Nicole DeBoard, criminal defense attorney in Houston, also served as the prosecutor in Harris County from 1994 to 2002, was an assistant there in the DA's office. It's good to have have you with us, Nicole. First of all, have you ever heard of $250,000 bail in a first-degree murder case?
I have. You know, in Texas, the purpose of bail is to make sure that someone appears in court. The bond was obviously a lot higher. And after hearing evidence in the case and testimony, the judge decided that to protect the community, the bond could be set at $250,000, along with an ankle monitor and constant monitoring of the accused while he is out of custody.
Part of the self-defense requirement, right? People have a legal right to defend themselves. If you're attacked by another person, you aren't required to flee. You are also legally required to use proportionate force in self-defense. What does one have to feel or have happened to them that it's okay to pull out a knife and stab someone in the heart?
That's such a great question. And this is really what this case is going to boil down to. Because in Texas, you can use deadly force only if you immediately believe it to be necessary to protect your own life. In other words, you're allowed to use force to the extent that you believe that it is immediately necessary to protect yourself. And so that is the question that ultimately the jurors who hear this case are going to have to ask themselves.
So in other words, if I shove someone and then they shoot me, that isn't really proportionate.
Generally speaking, no.
Okay.
Now, if there was testimony that the person who was shoved believed that somehow you were going to use deadly force and they had to protect themselves, okay, and the jurors believed that, potentially.
All else equal.
Right. Seems like a tough sell.
What about this idea that they were at a track meet at some kind of school event and that this young man, Carmelo Anthony, had brought with him a knife?
Another outstanding question, because the reality is that you cannot use an illegal weapon. You cannot bring a weapon to a dispute. If you know that, first of all, you are going to have an altercation or words with someone, you can't bring a weapon under Texas law to that altercation. The law says it right in black and white. Additionally, what you cannot do is bring an illegal knife, and I don't know if this knife was illegal, to a fight or to an area where there are, other people. I mean, it's illegal to possess certain types of weapons, and there's no exception to have it in track meet.
Yeah, in certain places, whether this school grounds qualified for that. The father said this is not a race issue. This is not a black and white issue. He may not believe it to be one. that probably would be the best thing for all involved. Can it stay that way?
You know, it's another really difficult to answer question. I mean, ultimately, I think that we're going to hear about it in trial, ultimately, why they think that this was a race issue. We've heard about this in social media. We've heard about it as the case has been ramping up into its days in court, but they're going to have some evidence to show that that was part of the equation here.
Last point, Nicole. Many people have made this a la Kyle Rittenhouse. He was the teenager, I think actually the exact same age, who brought a rifle to a BLM riot in Kenosha, Wisconsin, killed 2, and was acquitted because of self-defense claims in trial. Is that a fair comparison to this?
It doesn't really seem like a fair comparison. I have to ask myself, and I do wonder what the jurors in this case ultimately will be thinking when they wonder, why does a student have a knife significant enough to stab and kill someone at a track meet, a sporting event?
Yeah.
It seems like a question that we'll definitely be hearing again, and probably the jurors will have to answer.
Nicole, fascinating on every level, and really an important case. I think this is going to end up being a very big deal in American society as we move forward. Nicole, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Great insights. One thing you'll be talking about tomorrow when we come back: what Rory McIlroy's historic Masters taught us all.
If you're tired of the political spin and partisan bickering on the other cable news channels, you've come to the right place. You're listening to NewsNation, America's fastest growing cable news network.
Back after Rory McIlroy won the Masters on Sunday, he became the 6th golfer in history to complete the career Grand Slam. I got a text from a friend that said, what an example of never, never, never give up. Winners never quit. Quitters never win. Took Rory 10 years of struggle after a sensational early career. He never complained, never blamed anyone else, never got a bad attitude, never got snippy, and he never quit. Proving what I've said all along.